Yo, what's good my people? Welcome back to the Blakey Spirit channel. Hope you had an amazing weekend. Today we're going to be looking back one hell of a weekend in the combat sports world. Here over in the UK we had Fraser Clark racking up 10 rounds against Marius Vash. Let's see if that Wardley British heavyweight title fight is going to happen now. Ben Jalon pulled out of the purse bids and Sky, I guess, pushed out of the purse bids a few weeks ago, saying that Clark needed to get 10 rounds in before he fought Wardley for the British title. He's done that. We'll see if that's the next fight now, but we also know that David Adeleye, he's waiting in the wings, and he also won a couple of weeks ago as well. So yeah, we'll see what happens there.
Then the left hook, that is bang on the button. What a punch that was.
Wardley with Clark, Wardley or Adeleye, or maybe Adeleye Clark. You know, maybe they'll run it since they chatted shit to each other on Tunde Ajayi's show. I think that'd be a great fight as well domestically. Whichever one, it'll be a great fight. Fantastic. And then stateside in the boxing world, we had Regis Prograis defending his WBC super lightweight title successfully, although I think it was a lot harder than I think he and Eddie Hearn matching would have liked. But he got the job done on the split decision. We'll see what happens with him next. Who's he going to go against? Is it going to be against a unification fight? Is it going to be Adrian Broner? You know, he's so many options for him and everyone else in that division. Such a stacked division. Yeah, we'll see what happens there. And in karate combat, we had Luis Victor Rocha. I don't know how you say that, I'm Brazilian. But we had him defending his 154-pound world title belt championship, whatever you want to call it, in karate combat. So see what happens with him next. So he's going to move up a weight class, he's going to stay there, fight a few more times, defend it. We'll see. And then in MMA, we had in Bellator, Sergio Pettis defeating Patricio Pitbull Freire. Again, terrible, I'm so sorry if I butchered that. We had Pettis defeating the Pitbull, who is trying to become a freeweight world champion, but I guess that's a lot harder, especially in MMA, than boxing. Such a hard thing to do. No one in the UFC has even done it, so the fact that Patricio came so close to do it in Bellator is a credit in himself. And in the other major MMA promotion, yes, the UFC, the biggest MMA promotion in the world, we had a fantastic main event, and this is a fight that I'm going to go into. I think when I do like these fight review breakdowns, whatever, I'll just give a quick little thing like I did here in the beginning, and then I'll go into a fight that the one I enjoy the most. Basically, I'll go into that. And for this week, that has got to be a 5-round main event war in the middleweight division between Marvin Vettori and Jared Cannonier. Now, I think this was a great thing for the 185-pound division, especially in the UFC. Now that Alex Pereira has now gone up to light heavyweight, we don't even know if there's going to be another fight between Izzy and him. And the rest of the division, Izzy's basically cleaned up, including these two guys he's beaten. He's beaten Vettori twice already. He's beaten Cannonier once. So I guess the UFC didn't really promote this based on that. Just based on that, these guys, you know, they're both nowhere near Israel Adesanya's level, but fighting against each other, so I guess people don't really expect it to be that great. But you've got to remember, they're still two top 5 ranked fighters in the UFC middleweight division. They're going to be pissed off that they don't have the belt, that they've lost to Adesanya. They're going to want to get that back faster, especially in the case of Jared Cannonier, as he is 39, although he didn't show it, but we'll go into that in a bit. So yeah, it promised to be a great fight if you looked into it, and it was. I mean, that's got to be one of the best fights of 2023 so far. Elite striking from both men, particularly Cannonier. And yeah, the only bad thing about it, I guess, was that it was in the Apex. Why are we still doing fights in the UFC Apex. Makes no sense to me. I think even if you did that in like a little, even if you did that in like a little stadium arena thing, even just in Vegas, you don't even have to use the main, the big ones in Vegas. Just use a little one that can get in. You can get a couple of thousand people in, just to make a bit of an atmosphere, because it just feels soulless. It feels so soulless in those events. And I know it was cool during the lockdown. You could hear the coaches, and it was cool for a bit, like it was in the football here, or soccer if you're American. But yeah, that's the only bad thing I've got to complain about that fight, is where it was in the Apex. Could have been done in Italy. It could have been done in Texas, but no, done in the little soulless Apex. But oh well, I won't dwell on it. In my opinion, this fight was just a tale of what was on the line for both guys, both who wanted it more. They're both at different stages of their career. You know, Vettori's only 29, and for a middleweight in the UFC, that's still fairly young. You know, he's definitely got well over 5 years still in him. So he's got so much to improve, and I'm sure he will. Yeah, he'll definitely learn from this fight, although it got very tough for him, especially towards the end. But there was more in line for Cannonier. You know, he lost to Israel Adesanya, which wasn't a crowd pleaser. You know, Izzy just coasted against him because he could. And he said in the post-fight interview, you know, he said after that fight he wanted to increase his output, and boy did he increase his output. Most significant strikes in UFC middleweight history. That's such an achievement for him. What he's came from, he's got a fantastic story as well, Cannonier, and training in Alaska as well. I mean, don't really hear of many fighters, elite fighters coming out of. I know he came from Texas, but he's been in the Alaska gym for ages. So yeah, incredible story. You got to remember, this guy's a former heavyweight. He's fought heavyweight, he's fought light heavyweight, and he's been fighting at middleweight the past few years. So, you know, he's definitely someone that has to boil down to 185, but he really didn't show it. He really didn't show like he struggled to cut weight or anything like that on Saturday night. That's a dominant display. But since it was stand-up, it was basically a stand-up fight for the most part. Cannonier, in my opinion, I think he was just operating on a level above Vettori. His head movement seemed to be a lot better. There's so many times when Vettori just stood up, right? He didn't move his head at all, made it so easy for Cannonier to hit him. He hits hard, Cannonier. He hits really hard. Something else I noticed with Cannonier was that whenever Vettori did have a burst of energy, because Vettori was gassed for a large part of it, like really gassed, and like leaning on the cage kind of gassed. He was very tired. But whenever he did have a short burst of energy and he came onto Cannonier very, very smoothly, very quickly, just circled around, and then before you knew it, Vettori was on his back foot, which is so uncomfortable. Vettori is largely a front foot fighter, so when you do put him on his back foot, as we saw, he looked super uncomfortable. And again, that was another thing that confused Vettori, was, oh my god, how the hell am I going to get on this guy, you know, when I'm already tired? And as soon as I do get onto him, what the fuck, I'm back up against the cage, like, what the fuck's going on? So yeah, Cannonier just like, very, very masterful striking display, super impressive stuff. Now on to Vettori's performance, and it was, you know, he caught Cannonier in the first round, very, very nice shot, but that was the best of it, really. I think after that first round, saw Cannonier was starting to get the read of him. Vettori was starting to tire. His gas tank didn't seem nowhere near as durable as Cannonier's, and that's something that we see Vettori. You know, sometimes when someone does bring it to him, or he knows that someone's going to be a tough opponent, he gets all like tense. He really tenses up, and he's doing this a lot. He's just like constantly twitching like this. His hands are like constantly going like this, and you know, it's fine if you're deliberately trying to feint, but it just also expends so much energy. And he does get, I mean, as anyone would, literally about to fight a man in the octagon in the UFC. Everyone's going to get nerves. I myself have never had an MMA fight. I've done karate fights, but I've never had an MMA one, so I've got no idea. It's probably a completely different environment in a cage, and with all those people. I know he was in the apex, but still you got people watching. But yeah, but you know, some people, they're nice and smooth. Cannonier in this fight, much smoother. Wasn't doing any of this. Wasn't tense. Nice and smooth, was in his flow state. And yeah, Vettori expending too much nervous energy, tired him out quickly, much like it did in the Adesanya fight. So yeah, not a great night for him. But you know, like I said before, Vettori's only 29. For a middleweight, that's still fairly young. He can improve loads, and I still think he'll challenge for a title. He maybe even be the title holder in the future. But for now, I think he's just got to learn more, especially on the striking front. I don't know if he needs to change styles a little bit, not be so nervous with the hand, not so expend so much energy early on in fights. Yeah, he's got a lot to work on, like everyone does, like I do. Everyone's always got something to work on. He's the same. Yeah, I don't know what fight would be next for him. I think maybe someone just ranked in the top 10, someone just outside the top 10. I wouldn't put him in another huge fight. I think he needs to build back his confidence again, because I think that fight would have taken a lot out of him, both mentally and physically. So yeah, that's what I think's next for Vettori. And for Cannonier, the Killer Gorilla, he said in a post-fight interview, you know, he wants a title. That's what he's been working for. We'll see. We'll see if he gets it. I highly doubt it. I think if he is going to challenge the title, I think he's going to have to do one more fight before then, just because of how boring the first fight of him and Adesanya was, and the huge disparity in quality between the two in that performance as well. So big. I don't think that would sell a lot. You know, Hamzat maybe, Whittaker again, although he got smashed by Whittaker. But you know, those are the only real fights, I guess, for him. Cause I'd be very surprised if the UFC put him straight back in there with Adesanya. But yeah, we'll see.